Previously on Black Woman.
Look, I don't want to hurt anyone. So, like, when do we get paid?
To the extent anyone in my main channel comment section ever defended Riri Williams in Ironheart, the argument ran thusly. But Tony Stark was an evil, corrupt, sex addict weapons manufacturer. He was the villain at the start, just like Riri is. Because you're criticizing Riri for something Tony Stark did, this is evidence of your racism. Now, I do understand that Iron Man came out almost 20 years ago, and so rather a lot of people have escaped an abortion since its release. I suppose it's to be expected that some memories dim while others were never formed, but the true comparison is quite useful because it reveals a fundamental moral difference that rather a lot of well-paid writers struggle to grok, to say nothing of the troglodytes who like their movies and TV shows. This little video was going to be part of a longer main channel review of the rest of Ironheart, but that's been discontinued because I discovered I had better things to do with my time, like literally any other use of my time you can imagine. And yeah, I'm using the word literally correctly. But I've decided to spin this bit out as a second channel mini because it is reflective of a broader mistake in modern writing, the accidentally villainous hero, and it demonstrates one of the common underlying causes. We might call it a knowledge gap, though in fact what it really represents is an ethics gap. That is to say, it is not just that a modern hero does bad things, because that happens across all of fiction and can even make for better heroes. Rather, it's that a lot of modern heroes do bad things when they have no reason to. Because, as presented, they should know better. It is not that they have yet to realize some flaw in themselves which makes their well-meaning actions produce bad results. It's that the writer tells us that the character is smart and good and well-adjusted, and yet they commit bad actions regardless. This gives the unfortunate impression that the writer themselves is unable to differentiate good from bad deeds. But the average audience member is smarter than the average Hollywood writer, and this creates an unpleasant discord. The Hollywood writer gets very offended when we say that we hate their heroes, but this is largely because they have forgotten how to write heroes in the first place. Before we dive in, a quick word from this video's sponsor. If you don't want to watch it, there's a button for that.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
If you actually watched Ironheart all the way through, you'll know that the show managed to botch its potentially interesting revive your dead friend as an AI angle, along with pretty much everything else. She was supposed to be the emotional crutch of the show, but Natalie just ended up being the most irritating AI in the world. AI though, well, it's only as soulless and irritating as you make it. With a little imagination, you can have a bit of fun, and that's where this video's sponsor comes in. Polybuzz is a chatbot AI with over 1 million downloads that allows you to speak to many of the world's most colorful, real, and fictional people. Hi, President Trump. What did you think of Ironheart stealing stuff and doing a deal with the devil? Would you deport her? There are more than 20 million characters with whom you can chat for free. If you think the database is missing some important and obscure person from history, or would benefit from a character from your own warped imagination, you can make them yourself. Create their look, their personality, their voice, their background, and either keep them locked in your digital dungeon for private use or inflict them upon the world. Polybuzz is available across Android, iOS, and via its website. You can give Polybuzz a go, including premium features like a better AI model with longer memory, zero ads, and unlimited chats by going to the link in my description and using my code LOST. And now back to this disaster.
Please stand by for further details. We return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
At the beginning of Iron Man, Tony Stark is indeed a naive, arrogant, boastful playboy billionaire. These are character flaws he will spend the rest of that movie, and indeed the rest of the MCU, overcoming. What these things are not, however, is villainous, and for a very simple reason. When in Iron Man, Tony is accosted by a journalist, and just before he risks disease by shagging her, he is quizzed on the dubious morality of his business interests.
Do you plan plan to report on the millions we've saved by advancing medical technology or kept from starvation with our IntelliCrops? All those breakthroughs, military funding, honey.
This is important because it establishes a moral framework. Tony might be naive about the world, he might be cynical in his approach, but from the beginning he has an ethical standard. He forswears selling weapons for the love of violence, he defends the arms trade because it is lucrative, and by being lucrative, it funds less profitable but less complicatedly moral ends, like clean energy, healthcare, and so on. Tony Stark's sales pitch to the military is, likewise, a moral one. These weapons are not for wanton destruction, that is incidental. They confer protection. They save the lives of the good guys by destroying the bad guys. This is a view the movie quickly establishes as naive, and it's a belief sustained by what the movie shows is ignorance. But it is not villainous behavior. There is a very important difference between character flaws and moral flaws, though the two will often dovetail each other. Tony's flaw at the beginning of Iron Man is not his rampant and knowing immorality. It is vision clouded by petty vice. He fillets his own ego, he believes his own sales pitch, and his social station and his business partner shield him from reality. Iron Man is an incredibly efficient film for the most part, and so you only have to watch the opening act to understand the moral drama of the piece. Ambushed in the Middle East, Tony is exposed to the reality of his business interests, the way the world actually works, what his company has been doing without his knowledge. In the cave, he is aided by a trusting and trustworthy stranger who imparts one particular small yet vast message: that trust, friendship, and responsibility are virtues, that self-sacrifice is an expression of love, and that love is more rewarding than pleasure. The trials in the desert are Tony's moral awakening. When he returns, he not only tries to shift the entire focus of his company, but he begins looking at the people around him differently. The journalist and Pepper Potts are used to demonstrate a mindset shift from nymphomaniac playboy to someone newly awakened to friendship, trust, and loyalty. When Obadiah secretly frustrates Tony's plans for Stark Industries, Tony becomes an avenging angel. He himself is the weapon he uses against the weapons his company was funneling to terrorists without his knowledge. Tony's pre-existing friendship with Rhodey and the good terms he's on with the American military from before that movie begins show that several important things are unchanged about him. He was honest when he said he wanted to protect the soldiers. His company's legitimate arms business was founded with genuine good intent, but he is quickly maturing. He has a new, broader, and more ethical understanding of what protection means and who should benefit from it. In other words, and to restate the case, Tony Stark was never villainous. Tony Stark was sheltered by privilege, and that shelter prevented him from seeing the ethical cost of his half-formed moral opinions. Half-formed though they were never wrong. They were childish. Tony Stark does not move from villainy to heroic pursuits, he begins his heroic awakening. The comparison with Riri Williams is therefore instructive, and it makes the precise opposite point to the one Ironheart's defenders believe they're making. Riri Williams shares many of Tony's character flaws. She's young, arrogant, brash, egotistical, and naive. On top of that, she is resentful, churlish, and envious, and her arrogance arguably exceeds Tony Stark's in one important way. When Tony makes the Iron Man suit, he is making a tool to accomplish what he now thinks are good ends. When Riri Williams makes an Iron Man suit, it is to be iconic, and she is doubling down on her narcissism. The show's throwaway line in her opening monologue about emergency response times and medical tech was almost certainly added late in production because it's contradicted by everything she says and does after the introductory scene.
I want to continue Mr. Stark's legacy and revolutionize safety. And he contributed immensely to the field, so I won't roast Tony Stark off rip.
Riri Williams is a genius, as the show is at pains to point out, yet she knowingly engages in unethical behavior to boost her own ego, selling coursework to other students, selling unlicensed technology, causing injury to her peers, misusing public and university funds in service of an amoral goal: herself. But then things take a turn for the worse, and the differences between these characters become stark. pun intended, when Riri is expelled and goes off to become a criminal. Where Tony Stark did not knowingly do bad moral things even for good reasons, Riri knowingly does bad things for no reason. Her initial excuse for thievery is that she needs money to build her suit and her AI, yet she has both a suit and an AI before she goes on missions for the Hood. She refuses to earn the money she no longer really needs in any legitimate enterprise because she is bored of red tape and restrictions. She is poor for bad reasons, and she consciously does bad things to alleviate her self-imposed condition. Neither is Riri ignorant about the mission she's going on. The Hood outright tells her that what she'll be doing involves racketeering, extortion, breaking and entering. In the episode 2 mission briefing, she is told what the operation entails, a heady mix of corporate espionage and terrorism. She and the rest of her criminal friends briefly pretend that their target deserves what's coming.
You mean Sheila, I don't care if my tunnels destroy entire communities if it makes me rich?
You're right, screw her.
But this appeal to the community is then immediately dropped. Their goal is personal wealth, none of which will be shared, in aid of which people will get hurt, private property will be damaged, and the many working-class Chicagoans who work for the company in question could well end up being collateral damage. This duly occurs. Now, we are right here going into episode 3. There are 2/3 of the show left with which to redeem Riri as a character, but essential to redeeming her is the understanding that she needs to redeem herself, and that can't come unless the writers, and so their character, understands that everything she has done, again in full knowledge of the means and the purpose, is not just wrong, it is immoral. In short, Tony Stark was never a villain. As it stands, Riri Williams is a villain. The difference is the moral difference, which is determined by foreknowledge, intent, and the presence or otherwise of remorse. Tony Stark had no foreknowledge, it was kept from him. He had no intent, he did not mean to damage or hurt innocent people, and he developed remorse. Riri Williams had all the foreknowledge, she intended to do things she knows to be immoral, she willingly brooks the idea that people will be hurt, she sees it happen, and yet she has demonstrated no remorse. Nor does she by the end of her unfortunate series of events. For no particular reason, it is decided that she requires dark magic to defeat the show's proximate antagonist, the Hood, and this inexplicably deletes the AI that she regards as a true reincarnation of her best friend Natalie, because she doesn't think. This is despite Natalie being an AI previously shown hopping between devices and inhabiting the cell phone networks and such. But the show has to manufacture a devil's bargain, and it isn't particularly fussy about how it does this. We duly arrive at our devil's bargain. Having defeated the Hood, having seen what his villainous cloak has turned him into, she bumps into Mephisto in a dream pizzeria and he offers her a trade. Her wish? Reviving Natalie, for something she won't miss. Her soul. And by this point in proceedings, it's clear Mephisto is an idiot because Riri Williams doesn't have one of those. There are 2 rather large pieces of stupid in the show's final beat. The first, Riri expresses surprise that the revived Natalie is the real Natalie. This is odd because the whole reason she kept AI Natalie around was that she regarded it as close enough to being real. So, why would she not have wished for the real Natalie to return? But the second and more important one for our purposes today is that Riri Williams keeps the evil cloak. We see it in the backdrop, it's draped over her suit. Once again, the knowledge problem presents itself. She has already seen what this evil cloak does. She has seen what it does to its victims. She has seen what it makes its victims do. She takes it anyway. There's not really any other way of skinning this besides that she has, once again, but dialed up to 11, knowingly taken the most evil course of action open to her for reasons that aren't even particularly clear. This is not hero behavior, This is villain behavior, and it's badly written villain behavior at that. To be clear, you can still make an interesting character, you can still tell an interesting story, you can still create an interesting hero from a villainous beginning. You could even make a good villain. But if the intent was to make a villain, the show had to acknowledge that by making Riri pay a cost, losing her friends, losing her family, losing her moral anchors. It did not. And if the intent was to make Riri a hero, the remedial work had to begin after her first mission revealed the consequences of her actions to her. This would still have been imperfect because, as mentioned, all of those bad consequences were eminently foreseeable, her motives going in were wrong, and somebody with a tiny fraction of her gargantuan brain could have foreseen the tragic consequences. Instead of remedial work, we got this. Spelling your own name with the blood money you extorted from the innocent. You go, girl.